Okay, so first and foremost, good evening everyone, and thank you so much for joining. I'm Hitanshu Verma, uh, a Flutter facilitator for this year, and today I'll be starting with the very first session for the 3 days workshop that I'll be having in the next like 3 days, starting from today. So huh, today we will be starting with the front end of the application we are about to do. So first and foremost, what application are we building? We will be building a to-do app where you can add events, and all those events will be stored at the back end, and everyone who has this app will be able to uh, get notifications with those to-dos.
तेरे माइक में लाइक थोड़ी सी फटी हुई आवाज आ रही है. कैन यू चेंज एनीथिंग?
Okay, let me see. Am I audible now? Hello.
हाँ ब्रो, यू आर
Yes,
ऑडिबल.
sir, you are.
Okay, so essentially what we are building is a to-do app where we can add our to-dos, and everyone with this to-do app can can have those notifications with those to-dos, and once those tasks are done, they can swipe that or delete that, so that it signifies that the task is done for everyone. For example, I have this app and for example I have to do some chores. For example, I have to do laundry, so I can add that chore here, and anyone in my house having this app can have a look at that chore, that okay, laundry is still pending right now. So if any other person does the laundry, that person can just straight up swipe the event, or they can press the delete button, and it will just remove the event here, so that I can get the notification that okay, this event or this chore is done. All right. So basically, this app is built with two steps. Essentially, if I speak broadly, this app is built with two steps or two layers, if I may say. One is the front end, which you can interact, which the user can interact with, and the second is the back end, where all the data which we enter here with this floating action button, like the title of like I have to do my homework, if I say that, for if I say FOCP, I can add that. Okay, so this data is stored at the back end. Uh, for this app, we'll be using Firebase as our backend, and we'll be having a session on that as well. A senior Harsha will be taking that event like 2 days from now, and yeah. So I guess we should start with this. So is that yeah. Okay, so let me just okay. So after setting up Flutter and Android Studio, the very first step you have to do obviously is to make a new project, right? So to make a new project, you just go to files and just click on new Flutter project. Just to next here and just name your project. So let's say my name is GDSC. One thing you have to remember, there is no spaces allowed while naming. So you have to use something like underscore or something else. And secondly, capital letters are also not allowed. You can also use camel casing. For those who don't know camel casing, uh, this is camel casing. Like you have seen a camel, right? How it has a hump in its back. So just like that, if you're starting with the next word, the first letter of the next word has to be in uppercase. This is called camel casing. So Flutter uses camel casing a lot. Like there are many places where camel casing is used. For example, if I can show here. Okay, let's just first make this. So this is what a new project looks like. You have your all the configuration file for your Android and for your iOS, and here is where the main file resides. This is where we will be doing all of our coding. As of now, this is a default app designed by a Flutter team. It's just a basic counter app. If I just launch this, so if I just launch this app, firstly, here's where you connect your emulator. You can have your physical device as well as a virtual device. Like if you tap here, you can add your physical device. Like I'm using, when I'm using my physical device, I'll be using this device, and these are the virtual devices I've made. So as of now, I'm using this one, by this green line. All right. So now, if I will launch this app, it's gonna take a little while as it's compiling all of the data for them from Dart to your native Android code. It's gonna take a little bit of time. So that happened, and meanwhile, this other code. Yep. So this was the code I've written for today. This is just a basic code for not exactly this UI, but somewhat close to this UI, because to get to this we have to integrate Firebase. But you will see in a while that this code will result in somewhat similar UI like this. Okay, so until that happens, let me just start with this first line, the very first line of our code. All right. So those of you who are familiar with Java, anyone here familiar with Java? Java or Python, I might say. No. Okay. So essentially, this material.dart is a Dart file made by the Flutter team. All right. It's so we have to import this file. Right. What does this file does is it provides us all of these predefined functions and widgets, like this material app function, or this, even these classes, these stateful widgets, all are provided by this material app library. If I just comment this out, you'll see there will be tons of errors, like your stateless widget is not defined, even the run app function is not defined, widget is not defined. Essentially, everything is not defined, right? So to do anything in Flutter, to get started with anything in Flutter, you first have to import the material.dart package, right? And then you proceed further with your app. And to that, hmm. Okay. Okay, so let's try something else. मतलब मैं lecture देखी चल रहा हूँ उससे better है. You guys attended the last sessions, right? Hello, am I audible? If Dhanav, look up my where? Okay, so you attended last sessions, right? So up until now, you see anything similar from the last sessions? I audible or not? Okay, just let me. Okay, I'll proceed further. Okay, so the very first thing we have to import is the material.dart file. Alright? Then we move to the void main function. This is the only function which is executed while you launch your app, right? And this run app function is provided by a material.dart package. What this does is this signifies the compiler to call this function, or call this widget if I may specifically speak, and do whatever it says, right? बहुत बेसिक चीज़ है ये जो हम लोग सी और सी में पढ़ते हैं कि this will just call this runup function. Runup will tell the compiler to clear all the current processes and do whatever this thing is written, right? Alright. Then yeah, my app path. So map is a stateless widget as it is written here. So stateless widget. What is a stateless widget? Stateless widget is something which is constant. Like for example, if I'm having this screen, this button here is constant. If I press this, something will happen, but this button will not change its place. Like if I've painted this whole UI here, this orange portion, this button here, this icon here, these are all gonna stay here like forever. If I have my app open forever, they're gonna stay there forever and they're not gonna change, right? So this is what a stateless widget does. Whatever it has in it, it just prints it there without anything, without any changes possible. Whereas with stateful widgets, there is a possibility of changes. Like if I do something, if I give a input, it will react the input according to the code I have provided. Right? So generally the things which are supposed to be static are positioned in or are returned via a stateless widget, right? Coming down to a material app. Okay, coming to the material app, this portion specifically signifies that the UI kit we'll be using will be the material UI kit provided by the Google, right? All the stuff like your fonts, your designing stuff like your cards, your elevation, your curvature for your card, everything will be provided using this Dart package, right? You can also use cappuccino, but the cappuccino things are already predefined in your pubsub.yaml file. And yeah, coming to pubsub.yaml, I think Nimish already took this topic, but I'll go through in brief here. This is first and foremost, what is an YAML? What is an YAML file? YAML file just literally translates to yet another markup language. This extension literally translates to yet another markup language. What this does is provides all the dependencies, if I say, all the dependencies and all the software developing kits for which are required by your Flutter and your engine which is working on it. Right? You can see the cappuccino icons are already here, and the SDK, the software development kit we are using, is already here. These are all pre-written. This is the new app I created. If you can see, these are already pre-written here. There's nothing I have to do here as of now. So going back to the main screen. Yeah. So I was at material. Material provides a title. If I just hover over the widget, you can see all the properties it provides. Like it can have a key, it can have a global key, it can have a home widget, and their terms. These all are pre-coded by the Flutter team. You just have to use them as you wish, right? That's what makes Flutter so flexible, if I may say, to use. Like you can do many things what you please. You don't have to sit there and do everything from scratch. Already, everything is already pre-done. You just have to use them as you decide. Right? So, yeah. Material app has this title property, which provides title for the application. This is not a title. This is your where is it? Where is the app bar? Yep. This is the title for your app bar. This is not the title we are writing here or we are typing here essentially. This is not a title. This will be reflected at the build or the APK file you will be using. So essentially this thing is not printed anywhere. If I just comment it out, it will not be printed anywhere. It will not change anything. It's just there. If you want to use it, you can. If you don't want to use it, you can't. There's no need to use it in Microsoft's case. Alright. Then this is something which the Flutter team made. There's no need no need for it here. You can just make it basic activity. Yeah. So here theme data. Just comment it out. Yeah, not change anything. So this is the boilerplate code, if I may say, that the Flutter team wrote. So things can be there from the boilerplate code, which is not shown here because essentially my app is not using that. Alright, so this was the stateless widget, which essentially provided the material app function, and yeah, the main thing, the home function, the home property, if I may say. The home property is essentially everything you see here. Everything is coming from the home property, right? The home property is calling an yet another widget. Like so, you'll find this widget term pretty common with Flutter because everything here is a widget. Now, if I say broadly, a widget is nothing but a type of a class which does stuff. Don't relate it with class from other languages, but you can like say it broadly in that sense. So your home is yes, we are supplying my home page widget to the home property here, right? So let's go to the my home page widget, and yeah, one more thing. This title here, just like in other languages, like yeah, like for example, when you use your CPP, right? When we define a function, we can also define the some like some properties the function takes with itself, right? For example, if I'm defining an like try function, right? I can provide some values to it from by default, right? Like I can provide an integer value, and I can just use it down the line whenever I need, right? Same thing. The same thing goes with your widgets as well. See, we are supplying this title which we have defined here to the widget, right? So this my home page is a stateful widget. Now, just as I explained, a stateless widget, it just has a uh, yeah, state portion. Yeah, the state portion. This is the only thing it is doing. There's no widget portion here, right? Whereas for a stateful widget, there will be a widget portion, which is this whole portion, and a state portion. Now, I'll be going over this: what is a widget and what is the widget portion and what is the state portion. So essentially, widget portion is everything related to the widget. Yeah, is it defined here? For example, this constant my homepage is a constructor, like just like CPP, where where in a class a constructor is having the same name as the class. Here also, a constructor is having the same name as the class, right? Then we have key in Flutter or Dart, specifically speaking, is something which is used to uniquely identify anything. For example, if I supply a key here, this key will be used to uniquely identify this particular widget, my home page. Right? You must be thinking, okay, we could have also used this name as well to uniquely identify this. Yeah, you could have, but when it comes down to a app with multiple widgets and multiple pages. Like this is one page, you can add another page like uh, uh, login screen.art. This remembering every name becomes very cumbersome. Passing every names from one page to another becomes very cumbersome. That's where your key comes in play. You can just assign a key, and every time you access that key, this widget will be called automatically, right? Then we are initializing this string data type, the string title here, and this is required. So if I don't supply this title here, if I just delete it here, it'll show me an error that okay, a value type of null can't be assigned to parameter string because it is expecting me to pass a string here. Okay. So we'll be passing the string. All right. And then this super key is just an else condition, if you can see, right? So this was all about the constructor, and we are having this constant because we are not changing anything here. We are not applying the key here. We are not changing the title here. Once it's done here, when it's passed here, it's passed here. Then yeah, your final keyword. We made this title final because you don't want your title to be changed every time you do something, right? Title for an app is fixed. Okay, we are using Instagram. The Instagram title is fixed. We are using WhatsApp. Okay, the WhatsApp title is fixed. This final keywords helps us with making this title constant or fine, right? Like this is not changing in the course of this course of this run through. Whenever I change this, it's gonna change. But if some other function, something else tries to change this, it will throw an error. All right. Now this override essentially tells the widget portion to do the changes, whatever changes has happened, and update it here. All right. Now here it is calling the state portion of the widget. This was the widget portion of the widget, and this is called the state portion of the widget. And here's the definition for the state portion of the widget. So anything which is done in the state portion of a stateful widget is can be changed using the set state property. Like if we want to change like the to dos here, I have defined a list to do. If I want to change it with some action, I can just set here. It will update this and rebuild the whole app from here with a new value. Like this is how a stateful widget work. Whenever you do a change anywhere, for example, I added a new task, right? Or for example, I remove this task. I just remove this task from here. What will happen is this will uh, remove that task from the list which I've created, and then tell the compiler to recompile everything from here, from the build portion, using the new values which are now stored. Right. This is how the app is updated every time you do something with a stateful widget. Like it will, yeah, it'll update that. So yeah, coming back to a list. List is just what it says. List is a list of things. It's essentially list is a like, list of strings stored here. It can be anything. In this case, it's strings. It can also be your integers or float values. It can be a list of anything. It can be even list of other widgets as well. For example, a container is a widget, right? I can add a container as well here. So a list is just a list of things I've put it into it, right? So a list is a predefined data type for Dart. So I'll stop this up. That's all. Then I've defined a string named title here. String is also a type of data type here in Dart. And strings are required to be initialized while defining. Like if I just remove this, this will give me an error that it is not defined. It is a non-nullable instance. What is a non-nullable instance? Something which is not allowed to be null at any time. Like a string cannot be null anytime in here. Like so, not just huh. So we have just defined this string to a empty string. Like there is nothing here again, but we have defined something. Same goes with description. Okay, so this title will be storing the title of the app. Like here, the homework was written, and this description will be holding the description of the to do we are storing. Alright. So yeah, this is the UI we are designing today, and we'll be working on upon this in the next sessions. Alright. So yeah, this description will be having the description of the app. Then we have this init state. Okay, so what is init state? Init state stands for the initial state for the app. Like when the app is compiled for the very first time, what all things it has and what all properties it has to use, right? So, is it here? So initially, when we launch our app for the first time, we want our to-dos to have this hello and hey there uh, strings, right? Because obviously I don't want my app to show this M key list. Obviously it's not looking good. So I want something to be there. That's why initially stored an hello list as well as an hey there title cards for the initial launch. Then we come to the main build of our app. Here, what essentially what build does is it just builds everything here. It just brings this what do you call this card. It just builds this card. Every card here is built using this function, right? So this function is returning in center widget. Now center widget does exactly what it says. It will center anything it is having anything it is having as its child. Yeah, one more thing, child. Okay, so every widget, not essentially every widget, but uh, more than like enough widgets in Flutter have this child property or children property. Okay, so widget I'm speaking. Uh, Flutter works with this parent-child architecture, right? Where every widget is having some properties of its own, and then it is having a child which is supplying some properties of its own. For example, here the center widget is going to center everything its child is going to return. For example, its child is returning a scaffold. It is going to center that scaffold. Center for the screen we have. So the center widget will center everything, and we are providing a scaffold as its children. Now scaffold is a widget which just holds everything together. For example, scaffold is holding this app bar in its position. It's holding this body portion in its position. Even the scaffold is also holding this floating action button in its position. Remember how I told you that everything is fixed. So this scaffold is holding everything in its place, right? Then we have the app bar. The app bar is the like heading portion of your app, where you can add the title which is visible to the user using the title property. App bar is a property for the scaffold which is using another widget called app bar, which has the property title. All right, and the text which is written here is coming from the yeah, the parameter we pass to the my homepage widget. Like we pass this title here, which was stored in the widget portion. Right now, I want to access this here. This is the title here in the state portion of the stateful widget. So the syntax for accessing that is, we are going to first specify that we are accessing from the widget portion of the stateful widget, and then dot the parameter we are accessing, right? So here we are accessing from the widget portion, that is this portion, and we are accessing the title property, that is this property. Sorry, this portion. We are accessing it from this portion, and this title property we are accessing. All right. So whatever is stored here is printed on the screen. Like you can see, I have passed Flutter demo homepage here, and it has printed Flutter demo homepage here. If I just change this to it is zero, and then if I just hot refresh our app, this will be updated, right? So this title was passed to the widget while it was called. It was stored in the widget section, and now it is called in the state section of the widget using the syntax, like we are accessing the widget and the title we are accessing, right? Now this closes the app bar widget. Then we have the body. This is the body portion. We'll come back to the body portion later, because there is this floating action button as well, which is a part of the scaffold. So yeah, the floating action. So floating action button is also a property of a scaffold. If you just hover over your scaffold, you can see there is this floating action button property, the location property, the widget floating action button. So this property takes obviously a floating action button, and the floating action button is also a predefined widget by the Flutter team in the material.dart package. All right. And this floating action button takes an onPress function. Like what will happen if I press this button? As of now, it's just an anonymous function with nothing happening. I have specified nothing, right? So that's why if I click on this, nothing is happening. And this tooltip is kind of useless here. So if I just remove this, see, nothing happened. Then this floating action button also has a child, which can be anything. In this case, it's an icon. I can also have it can also have a text in its place. If I just do this, and I just do this. See, you can see the child property is printed over the floating action button. You can imagine this as a stack. For example, like a stack, so it's like a stack. Like for example, this floating action button is at the bottom of the stack. Then we have its child, which is on top of it, right? If we want multiple stuff here, we can use the column or the row property, like row widget cell. Okay. This is sophisticated. Then yeah, so this floating action, but we'll be using this floating action button to add events. As of now, it's just an infinite list. There's no end to it. We don't want that. We just want a fixed amount of events we have added here, right? So that's why we'll be working on this in the later part of this workshop. Yeah. Then coming back to the body, the main content of your app. What you can have about anything. If you want a container, for example, if I just comment this out, if you want just to write anything in the body section, just and we can add a container. Container is pretty self-explanatory itself. Container is just a widget which provides some space to interact with. You cannot interact with the space directly here. You cannot interact with the space which body provides directly. right? You have to use another properties to another widgets to interact with that space. For example, if I want to write something here, if I want to just remove everything here, just write my name here. I cannot write that directly. I cannot provide like a string here directly. Like I this first I cannot do this directly. As this body property is expecting a widget here, and I'm providing a string here. So to interact with the body quotient, you have to use widgets in order to do anything with that space the body provides. So container is one of the widgets which provides you this property. Like you can use a container, and then you can go for, you can use its child property to provide a text to it, a text widget to it. Here you can write anything. Or text for text also you can use double quotes or single quotes. Same goes with strings as well. There's no difference here. Like this is a text, right? Let's save this. You can see here this text is reflected here. If I just convert this to a like double quotes, this is nothing has changed. Like it accepts single quotes as well as double quotes. Obviously, the another is added here. But what I was trying to say is, you can use single quotes for strings, or you can use double quotes. There is no one option. Like you can use anything you please use. So I'll be commenting this out. Since there is no body position, there is nothing here. There is just this the scaffold which is holding the app bar and the footing action button. Like, yeah, one more thing. You can see this debug banner here, right? Now for a final production version of your app, you don't want this debug banner. Like you don't want your users to like think that this is any prototype or any alpha or beta version of the app, right? So how you disable this thing is you go to your yeah, go to your material app, and if you just hover over it, you can see there is this property debug show check banner mode. Right, this is a boolean which will take a either a true or a false value, and based on the value this property holds, this thing will be shown here. For by default this thing is true. So now if I just do this, set this shit. If I just set this property to false, the debug banner is gone, right? Yep. And one more thing. These colors you can see here. If I just remove this for a second. Yep, nothing is changed. So these colors are by default there. Like I haven't specified any color. Like if I would have specified any color, this that will be shown here in the like left portion of the screen. But as of now, I haven't specified any color for any property, like for the floating action button or for the app bar. I haven't specified any color. Still, yet it is blue, as the Flutter team has decided that blue should be the default color for any application. So if I didn't provide any color, it will stay blue. But obviously I can change that. Like for the app bar, I can use the background color property and set it to the colors we'll be using for this app. Orange color here. So I will be going with just like that. The heading color is now changed. Like similarly, you can do this with the printing action button as well. Also has the background color property. You can also set the background color here as orange. See? So any color you provide for any widget which has a color as property will be shown here, so that it is easy for you to like check on a fly, like which widget has which color if you're not launched your application. For example, if I want to see which color my app bar is, I can just come here and see, okay, it is orange. If I want to see what color floating action button is, I can just come to the floating action button and see it is orange. See, I can also see it here, but I have to find it in the code. Like I have to find the particular property, whereas it is visual here, so it is much more easy to find. Like if I just set it green, and look at it green, right? So this is for regarding the color property of widgets. Again, not every widget supports colors. Not every widget has background color property. Some has color as well, like some has background color, specific background color property. Some has color property only. For example, a container just has a color. If I just comment this, a container does not have a background color. If I just write background color, there is no such property associated with a container. Rather, it has a color property. So this is something which comes with like practice. You'll just understand. But for the first time, just hover over the widget, and you will know you know which property it supports. For example, a container supports width. A container has height. A container has color as its color property. Whereas you have to use background color for your floating action button, right? We can also set elevation. What is elevation? You can see there is a slight shadow here. This is what elevation does. So yeah. Example, there is this property called mini. So if I just set this property to true, yep. So you can see the floating action button is now smaller in size. This mini property does exactly what it seems. It it, uh, it provides you with a miniature version of your floating action button. If I just comment this out or set this property to false, it will give me a regular floating action button. So it's up to the designer or the coder what they want specifically in their app. For this particular app, I'll be using the default size as like this will be used pretty frequently, and I don't want my users to be fiddling around at where is the R icon and where is the icon. So I'll be using this in its default size, right? So this was regarding the body portion of your application. Yeah. So here for this app, yeah, what you saw was the uh, adding a to do. Like that color was, but that color was specifying that this thing is still needs this thing. Like if I just write to do here, this will just add a green color text here, which will tell me that okay, I have to implement this thing as well. This is a developer option provided by the yes your IDE here, your Android Studio. This tells me that I have to add titles to my tools, right? So this line will not be compiled obviously, as it's a comment, but adding this to do here changes its color to green, which is specifically flashed here because anything else here in this code is not green. apart from this. So yeah, this is pretty attention grabbing, if you say. So that I'll not be forgetting what I have to do with my app, right? So this is the to-do functionality with the IDE. Then yeah, so here we are using a list view builder. So now what is list view builder? For that we'll be heading to your official documentation of Flutter. See, official documentation of Flutter is very important for any Flutter developer, as everything is pre-coded with this library. Everything is pre-done, right? This material app is already made by the Flutter team. This center, the scaffold, this app, app bar, everything is pre-made by Flutter team. So you must know what properties they have and how they work. That's why we always refer to the documentation, the official documentation for Flutter. So yeah, this is the official documentation. You can search here, like you can search container class, right? You have this convenient video here explaining everything. Container, everything will be defined here with an example, like how should a container looks like, and within a code example as well. Like you have margin, this margin is provided here, everyone, right? It is having a color amber, it is having this width and a height, right? With every property the container supports. So there is everything written here. So you have to refer to this documentation if you are stuck anywhere. If you want to know what properties does this widget uses. For example, not everything is specified here. It's just the properties here. But what kind of stuff this navigation key will take? I don't know. It will take a global key, but what is a global key? So I don't know that. Or what kind of theme does this thing will take? So there are examples and everything is pre-explained here with the documentation. So we'll be looking at the list view builder. So if I just put the long story short, this list view builder is just gonna build a list, right? That's exactly what it's saying. I'm gonna build a list. That's why my name is list view builder. So this list view builder is gonna build a list of items you provide the builder with, right? Example here, yeah, this list view builder has a required property item builder, which takes the item I provided. Item builder is going to take an anonymous function. All of you have already studied about the anonymous function. Anything without any function without a name is an anonymous function. So this list view builder is going to take an anonymous function, which is going to return something. And I don't know what it's going to return. It's going to return something. Whatever it's going to return, I'm going to print the list view builder is going to print it on the screen. Or rather, if I just say this like this, it's going to build that on the screen. Alright, so this list view builder is going to build a list with the data or the widget provided returned by this anonymous function. This anonymous function is having a context as its parameter, and it's taking an index for the parameter. Yeah, one more thing about anonymous functions, I can just provide the data type here, integer or yeah, build context is the context in which reference this is built here. Like this is build in reference to the size of the string, right? So that's what the context is doing here. So the item builder is going to build anything with the reference to the context here. And like the index is nothing, just this index is the number of items it's going to build. If I just provide 5 here, it's going to build 5 here. So this system, right? So this anonymous function is returning a dismissible widget. Now what is dismissible widget? Then again head to the documentation for dismissible. So dismissible widget is nothing but just a container with an additional property that it can be dismissed on while you swipe it. If I just run this, I can just swipe this. So, in it by itself is just a container. You can see it's just a container which is expanded to the sides, to the width of the display, and this container has a specific property that I can just swipe it in any direction to just remove it from the screen. Right? This is what a dismiss screen, which it is. It is just a container with a slide to dismiss function. It is also pre-built, as you can see. Everything is pre-built here. You just have to essentially drag and drop it in the code. So this dismissible widget is using a key. So to just uniquely identify it here, and it is having a child, which is having a card widget. Now card widget is exactly what it says. It is a card which is having uh, some other properties like an icon, title, anything. Right? A card in itself is also a container with some extra properties, like this card. Uh, um, this card can have a elevation. It can have shape. It can change its shape. You can change its shape. Uh, yeah. So this card is also having its its own child. So I think this dismissal which it was having card as its child, and now this card is having the list style as its child. Right. So list style is nothing but this style here, this stuff. If I just so this list style is nothing but this style here. Alright. Yeah, we're about to finish. So and then title which will be written here as you saw in the uh, starting of the session, there will be a title here, subtitle or the description, which is the description of the event which is added here, right? Trailing. What is trailing? Trailing is a property of a list style which expects a widget. This is also a widget. Trailing is nothing but anything we provide here in the trailing section will be printed at the end of the list style. Like here I have provided an icon button. This is a button with an icon. Right? That's why it's an icon button. I could have also provided this with I could have also provided this with text, just like this. So now the text remove is written everywhere. It is still a particular button. It is not. I have to wrap this. Now this is not a button. It's just a text, right? This is constant here. So trailing just expects an widget. You can add any widget, whatever you like, right? You can add an icon button. You can add a floating action button. You can add a raised button. You can add anything here. For that matter, you can also add an icon, just an icon here. There's no need for a button. If you don't want a button here, obviously for this case we'll be needing a button that you can press it and it will just remove from the tile list here. But just in case you are building a static app page or static app, you just want an icon to be there. You can you just want an icon to be there in the list, right? You can just add an icon here, just like this. Just call the icon. You can just use widget here with the icon property. Specify the icon you're using. If you're using the add icon, just use icons like that, and you can have and plus icon. If you just wanted this to be a static button, static icon here, you can do so in such manner, right? But for this case, we want it to be a button. That's why we are using this icon button widget here. It's a button with an icon. It doesn't have any color property as other buttons have. If I use an elevated button here, it will have different properties. So each button type has its own properties. Like if I search button here, buttons, there are multiple types of buttons. So you can see there are many types of button. And since this material.dart library is constantly updated, there will be some old button widgets, old themes, and new replacement themes and replacement widgets. For example, a raised button was earlier used, right? But now it is replaced with an elevated button. So it's not like you cannot use the raised button here. If I just replace this text button with an raised button, not like it's not gonna work or something. It will still work, but it will have this crossed line. It specifies this that this widget is depreciated. There is another better version of this widget, and you must use that. That's what a crosshair signifies. So we were talking about buttons. So essentially, there are majorly three types of buttons. We can use: a text button, which just has a text; an elevated button, which has the elevation property; and an outline button. Outline is nothing but just an outline which is transparent and have a text. You can see the examples. It has examples here. Okay, fine. You can go through all of this by yourself. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this trailing property is having an icon button with an icon delete. It's having a delete icon, and the icon is having a color red, right? And as of now, on pressing that icon, and if I press this icon, it has to set the state, that is this state property, and remove the index it is inside. For example, this style will be having one as its index. This style will be having two as its index, right? So if I just want to delete this one, I'll just apply two index for the to do, and this to do will remove the string or the list or the anything it is having on the second index of this list. And one more thing, these lists are having zero indexing, like their indexes are zero. So if this is the first list, this will be starting from zero, just like your arrays and stuff, right? So these was it? Yeah, this to-do list will remove that particular list at the index. And since I have used set state, so it is gonna go here in the state portion, update this variable, come down here to the build function and ask this function to rebuild everything on the screen with the new properties I am having, right? Earlier it was having, like, for example, if I delete this, right? Earlier this was having something at position 0. Now since I've deleted this, there's nothing here at the position 0. It is empty. So we or the compiler here asks this build function to recompile everything from the start, not everything, just uh, this particular widget portion, rebuild this widget portion from start with the new properties we have in here, right? Whereas this init state was executed only when this widget was called initially. When we rebuild this widget, this init state will not be called, right? So this is how we are gonna remove it using this button. Then this is the footing action button I've explained, and yeah, it is pretty much it currently for the app we are having here. Obviously, we'll be working on this as this is just an infinite app. There's no end to it. So yeah, we'll be doing some bug fixes here. and we'll be doing it on the tomorrow's session. So yeah, anything up till now? Any queries, any questions, anything? All right, so okay, so I'll be ending today's sessions now. So thank you so much for joining the session, and yeah, I hope you to see in the next coming two sessions as well, where we'll be completely building this app in to a usable app which can be used by anyone, right? As of now, it is not in any usable stage. Yeah, thank you so much for joining.